Welcome back, MTG Joe here. Today we're going to be doing a weekly meta breakdown for the historic. Timeless was the other video I recorded today, but historic best of one format. So the new set, Outlaws of Thunder Junction, just came out, and it's got a whole bunch of like bonus sheets that impact historic. So we are going to take a look. It is fairly early into the format. We are only 4 or 5 days in. So it's going to be high level, usually like Timeless, Historic, and sometimes Explorer take a little bit longer for cards to kind of trickle in and see their impact, given that it's a lot larger of a card pool. So we're going to look at the top performing decks thus far as tracked from Untapped GG. What you see on the screen is a companion tool that aggregates users' win rate, gives us a whole bunch of cool stats, tracks your own win rates as well and collections, so cool stuff there. Link for Untapped is in the video description. I will paste all these deck lists as well. So you can kind of follow along and pull in whatever you want to your Arena client. This is going to be a best of one video. Best of three usually takes a few more days, at least a week worth of data. So we will kind of revisit the best of three for all the formats later on. So we will look at popularity of the day. So what's the most popular decks? And then we'll dive into the deck lists themselves. Quick kind of reminder for folks, if this is the first time you're swinging by, if you do enjoy this type of content, we're trying to hit 15,000 subs on the channel. You see the ticker in the top right hand corner. Free to sub to channel, help support. As always, likes and comments to the videos also go a long way. Help appease the YouTube overlord of the algorithm. So really appreciate it if you could. So popularity of the day, Wizards, 40% meta share. I love Wizards deck. I think it needs to probably be looked at in this format. Symmetry Sage is a hell of a card, and we're starting to see Slick Shot also get included in the deck. We've also seen some versions that are using Surgical Extraction just as a free spell for extra prowess triggers. That can also target like opponents' graveyards and stuff like that, which is pretty strong. So 40% of the meta. Then we have Mono Green coming in at 20%, Azorius Control at 6.5%, and then Mono Green Elves 3.5%. So still a little early in the format. We'll likely see some stuff. One thing that Untapped started doing is it's tracking like recent mythics as well with like the decks they're using. It does take a little bit of parsing because some of these decks, like they have a high win rate, but for example, like this could just be they played 4 games. So they won 3 or 4. So I'm going to take a look at this as part of like the scanning as well to see if there's anything interesting that folks are doing well with, and then pull that into the data itself. If it's a reasonable kind of spread in terms of win rates and stuff like that. But we are going to jump in. So we have Diamond and Mythic rank, 13,000 games of best of one. I tried to go to Platinum, but there's a lot of like noise with some weird decks that I just don't think are representative. Platinum, like Plat 4 is kind of the jank capital of the historic format, but 13,000 games, we can't really filter lower right now. And we're still locked for the 7-day window. So highest win rate deck, in addition to being the most popular deck, is Izzet Wizards, 74% with this particular list. And the most notable addition is One Bird Wizard Slick Shot Show Off, 2 mana, 1/2 Flying Haste. Gives you the ability to plot. So 2 mana, set it aside on kind of an adventure. And then on a future turn, you can cast it for 0 mana at sorcery speed. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, it gets like super prowess of +2/0. So Kiln Fiend with Flying Haste. What looks like it's being trimmed is 1 copy of Dreadhorde Arcanist. In this particular version, it looks like there's no Spell Pierce or Play with Fire. You sometimes see that as like within the 1-drop slot. This particular list is Leverage and Consider as its main card draw advantage, along with Flame of Anor. You have Dreadhorde Arcanist and Expressive Iteration. So fewer copies of Dreadhorde in there, but still your very explosive deck. Shove Aside is a card that I've been really impressed. It mainly gives you an answer if you are on the draw. You can have an answer to turn 1 Symmetry Sage of your opponent's cards. Also can go to a Planeswalker from your opponent. Notable though, this requires a target. So unlike with Play with Fire, that can always go face. There's times where you're not going to be able to have a target for this, especially against like say blue-white control. Full Fiery is lit in the mana base. Firebluff Canal recently reprinted, so good time for folks who don't have it to get a copy of it. We then go to Azorius Control. So another reprint that we got in the set was Archmage Charm. So if you haven't collected these yet and you're interested in this type of deck, it's a good time to pick up copies of that. This particular version is at 68%. This is a Kalim version that also has access to 9 lives. Basically, you're not doing the lock of 9 lives Solemnity, but you are just giving yourself some extra turns if you need it. So you could basically fog some damage. The version's also playing one of the new special guest cards in Ghostly Prison. Can't remember if this is from the most recent or the previous, but creatures can't attack you unless their controller pays 2 mana for each creature they control that's attacking. So against very low mana decks or things like elves, they're going to have a very hard time dealing the requisite damage to you. You have Divine Purge, you have Union of the Third Path. This version's got an Oracle of the Alpha, One Ring, Karn kind of mixed in there. Notable, do not fare well enchantments when you have 9 lives on the battlefield. You will lose the game. You will not pass go. You will not collect $200. We're seeing the Meticulous Archive showing up more in Control. All the Storm Giants. Interesting, you see a Mystic Sanctuary. This isn't a card you see too often in Historic because you don't have fetch lands to kind of enable it. With your Karn package, you can go with Graveyard Hate, kind of cheat into play hate. Ivory Tower works nicely with the One Ring if you have extra cards. Liquid Metal Coating to blow up lands or turn off activated abilities with Karn. Cityscape Leveler, blow up stuff. God Pharaoh Statue attacks your opponent in the 3rd copy of One Ring. It also is playing a Teferi Slows the Sunset, a card you don't see too often in these types of shells. Path to Exile is printed, so you may want to consider Path to Exile over like March of Otherworldly Light or Fragment Reality. Might be something to consider just as a cheap removal option there. Selesnya Angels, a deck that we haven't seen in a hot minute. This one's a interesting collection of cards. 68% win rate with 44 matches is super reasonable though. Favorite Angel package, couple of copies of Voice of the Blessed. This one's got a single copy of Book of Exalted Deed. This mana base is terrible. So this looks like just kind of like a budgety version. I'm going to show this. I don't think this is very good. Like, it's terrible into blue-white control usually because they just sweep you. The configuration is pretty bad in this deck, just with the mana. 20 lands is too few for this volume of 4 drops. Gem Razor is not really something you want in this type of deck, especially with Collected Company. Johnny's fine. Sigarda's fine. I just don't think you want the Gem Razor. You probably want the other 1 drop that gains you some life in there potentially as well. Or just go with the full set of Resplendent Angels. So it's here if you want to try Angels, but I don't think this is a great list. You can find, like, the Angels list really hasn't changed that much in like the longest time. If you do want to see it, just look up my Historic playlist. There should be like the Historic and Explore Angels are pretty close in terms of deck lists. You just add Soul Warden in the Historic version. We got a return of Dragonstorm, 65%. So this is a combo deck, combo breaker, another deck that has a reprint now. In Terror of the Peaks got reprinted, so if you don't own them, you can get them in the packs. But what you're trying to do with this deck is self-mill. And what you particularly want to self-mill is either Emergent Ultimatum or Dragonstorm. And then with Dragonstorm, you can get basically either enough Storm through Emergent Ultimatum by picking out pieces that you have Bladewing in the graveyard, and then you get Terror of the Peaks into play, Bladewing, target the Bladewing in the graveyard. It brings back a Bladewing. These are legendary creatures, so the Bladewing comes to play, triggers, 1 dies because of legend rule, you target, they keep entering the battlefield, and you instantly ping your opponent to death. A couple of backdoor ways, so Mizzix's Mastery can target Emergent Ultimatum, it can target Dragonstorm, you have Velomachus that can target any of these spells here. Scholar of the Lost Trove can target any of your kind of milled over cards as well. You're able to do that with like Burial Rites as well, so there's a lot of kind of intricate ways to kind of get the combo going in that respect. Now, this deck keeps showing up in win rates. Someone vouched for it. I said last time I cannot vouch for it. You can tell based by all the grayed out cards. I do not own these cards. I have not played any of these cards extensively. But Slivers, 63% after 38 games. This is a tribal deck that is all about Slivers. So Hive Lord gives Indestructible. The first Sliver gives Cascade. That just makes all the other Slivers have Cascade. So once you get going, you get going. You get Double Strike. You get +2/0. You get deals combat damage to a player. Put a 1/1 counter on it. You get Vigilance. You get Power. You get Mana. You get Flying and Haste. And you get First Strike. Great mana base in terms of a bunch of duels. Or not duels. Quinta. Whatever the 5 is. Ziggurats, Caverns, Secluded Courtyard, Unclaimed Territory, Sliver Hives. And then interesting to see Nykthos in here. I probably wouldn't play Nykthos in a deck like this. It would just play more like multicolor stuff, or kind of go from that avenue. And then lastly, Mono Green Devotion. So this is less of a combo version and more of a beater version. So we've seen like the Cavalier of Thorns version. This one here is still leveraging like the Kiora package with all your 1-mana accelerants. You got Haywire Might main, Liquid Metal Coating main with Karn. Pelucranos, no Storm the Festival, and this one's a little interesting, but Tribute to the World Tree gets you a bunch of devotion and then gets bigger. Like your other creatures, or card draw, you have Questing Beast, Otherworld Oddly, and Silver Black Elder. This card's very good against the Wizards deck, being a 5/7, gains you life, and then just gives you like card advantage as well. So just a big creature that's tough to deal with. So all things like interesting. I would probably play the Archdruid's Charm in this list, since you have such density of creatures, especially just finding Nykthos, but the fight could be reasonable. With Karn, you have access to like cityscapes, portals. This one's just like going really big in terms of the deck, which is kind of interesting. I would play at the least at the minimum, just cut a God Pharaoh's Gift, play Tormod's Crypt or something, just something for graveyard hate I think is really important in terms of the format. And that's it for the week. Let me know what you think. We'll catch you next time. Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there.